Okay, gewaltig. Zok the Heilige Gemara. We're all the way at the bottom of Daf Pei Vav Amud Beis, Tanya Idach. So we just learned that Rabbi Yehuda said, Suma ein loy boishas. There's no din boishas for a suma at all. And the Gemara was looking for a makor for Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara said, Yalaf einecha einecha. By the pasuk of boishas, it says Leisechais eincha alav, or Leisechais eincha, meaning you cannot have a chumon, you have to make them pay. And it also says eincha by Edom Zayim. So we learn, just like Edom Zayim, you cannot have, a suma cannot be an Edom Zayim, so too a suma has no chiyuv of boishas. Rashi said, why can't a suma be an Edom Zayim? Because a suma can't be an Eid. Because how could he say testimony to something that he saw if he cannot see? On that, Rabbi Kiva asks, why can't the suma say Edus on something that he saw before he became blind? And therefore, Rabbi Kiva does not understand. Rabbi Kiva does not understand Rashi, but he does bring down from other shitas in Bava Basra that there happen to be psukim that say that a suma is not a kosher Eid. And then,
yeah,
and he also said,
where does his proof that assume is not a kosher Eid? What do you say?
they're psukim. The Kiva brings down that the Rosh, I think, brings psukim.
It's the whole
Yeah.
more than one.
Yeah, he says Rosh of the Shuma Apostle the Chsiv Oira Prat L'Suma. So we learn that of Oira. So we learn from there that a Suma cannot say Edus, even if he actually saw the Edus before he became blind. And we also learn, we spread this halacha from Edom Zayim to Boisha to Boishas, and then we pass it on to the Blidas of we have a new halacha Blidas by Golus, that a blind person does not go into Golus, and from there he learned that a Ritzayach doesn't get killed, and from there he learned that Chayv and Malchus, a blind person is part of a Malchus. Okay, it's Tanya Yidach, but we had another brayso where Rabbi Yehuda says things a little differently. Rabbi Yehuda Eimer Suma Ein Le'Boishes, V'chein Hoya Rabbi Yehuda Hoitroi Mikol Dinim Shevetayr. Rabbi Yehuda pagas a Suma from all of the dinim in the Torah. My timer, the Rabbi Yehuda. What is this for Rabbi Yehuda? Amakra, it says V'shaftu Ha'eda Bein HaMakeh Uvein Goyal Adam. Al Mishpatim Eila. If a person goes to Golas, then Yeshnei b'mishpatim, then he'll be mechuyev in all the other mishpatim. Which means we know from Amud Beis that Rabbi Yehuda learned from Asher Yova Yisrael B'yar and the Bavlidas that a blind person does not go into Golas, so too he's not included in all of the mishpatim. I am not 100% sure what all the mishpatim mean. It sounds like it's dinei choshev mishpat, because we have another Rabbi Yehuda that says differently. Tanya idach Rabbi Yehuda Eimer Shuma ein leBoishes v'chein haya Rabbi Yehuda Eimer v'chein haya Rabbi Yehuda Paitroi mikol mitzvah hamuris b'Torah. I think mishpatim and kol mitzvah hamuris b'Torah are different. So maybe mishpatim are like dinei choshev mishpat, because it's all from v'shaftu ha'eda. And Rabbi Yehuda in the next version says that a suma is potter from all mitzvahs. Okay, so let's see the pasuk. Amar Rav Shisha, Reder Vidi, my time Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Kra, Ve'ela mitzvahs hachukim va'mishpatim. Kol sheyeshnei b'mishpatim, if someone's included in the mishpatim, then yeshnei b'mitzvahs, then he's included in the mitzvahs. The chukim and chukim as well. Kol sheyeshnei b'mishpatim, ain't b'mitzvahs chukim. A person who is not in mitzvahs is not in mishpatim or chukim. So I guess again, mishpat is a certain class of halachas. I'm assuming it's beikar dinei Torah, beikar choshev mishpat. Does the article say what mishpat means? Okay. So let's stop here a second, because we have a couple of problems that Tosfos raises that we have to sort out. The first one is V'chein Hayra Yehuda Paitroi Mikol Dinim Shabbatayr. Frek Taisvis Tema. Imkain my Yehuda Pater Rabbi Yehuda B'Boishes. How did Rabbi Yehuda introduce this? Rabbi Yehuda said Suma Ein LeBoishes, and he's part of a Mal Mishpatim. Once he's part of a Mal Mishpatim, what is irrelevant that he's part of a Boishes? That's also one of the Mishpatim. So Tema Imkain my Yehuda Pater Rabbi Yehuda B'Boishes. Well, why did he pater? Why did he even express that he's dafka patering by Boishes? He's patering by all Mishpatim. V'lama li gzer shava de necha necha. Why do we need to gzer shava necha necha? Once we know that he's part of him galus from below Ra'is, we learn that he's part of him al Mishpat, including the Mishpat of Boishes. So if that's the case, why is Rabbi Yehuda still having a gzer shava necha necha? V'nir we took the big kiddush. In fact, Rabbi Yehuda, who originally just introduced it by Boishes, he's chayzer. Once he found the drasha to pater, a psuma from Misan Galus from Al Mishpatim, who adin he would not require the gzer shavei necha necha. And the Chroinim ask, the Shu asks, on these Tosfos, I don't understand. Isn't there a rule that Ein Adam doesn't gzer shava me'atzmai unless he heard it from his Rebbe? So obviously, if you heard from his Rebbe, there is a gzer shava v'necha. So how could Tosfos say he was chayzer? He heard it from his Rebbe. Inami, ilav the goldi gzer shava de'necha lift or suma. If it wasn't for the fact where he first saw that a suma is potter from Boishes because of the gzer shava v'necha from Edom Zaymin. He might have learned in Golus like Reb Meir hold that a suma is chayv in Golus, and he dashes the pasuk with ein miut achamiut al rabbis. But Reb Yehuda, what made Reb Yehuda understand the pasuk by Golus to say that a suma is part of him Golus is once he established that a suma is part of him Boishes and the suma is part of him Zaymin. So it was mistaber to him that a suma should be part of a mitzvah, and that's why he understood the pasuk by Golus to pater a suma, because he already saw that precedent by Boishes. Now the next Tosfos is a very fascinating Tosfos. Rabbi Yehuda holds that a suma is potter from all mitzvahs. Tema for Tosfos. How could you suggest that Rabbi Yehuda holds that a suma is potter from all mitzvahs? I'm going to prove to you that according to Rabbi Yehuda, a suma is chayv in mitzvahs. Why? Because Haditan the Perak HaKarish Megillah, Rabbi Yehuda Aimer Kol Shalei Ra Ayrosh Miyamav. Somebody who's blind from birth, he never ever had a benefit from the light. Lo Yifres Al Shema. He's not allowed to be moitzi other people with Birchas Krishma because he never saw light. Afilu Ra V'Nisma. So the kasha is, why is Rabbi Yehuda saying there, that if he was blind from birth, according to what we're saying over here, that a blind person is potter from all mitzvahs, so afilu rav nismanami amar hacha the potter mikol mitzvahs. Why does the Gemara say if he never saw light, he's potter? Because he's not mechuyev in that mitzvah at all, because he never saw ma'ayres. But he's not mechuyev in any mitzvahs. So Aibazai, why is it that Rabbi Yehuda in Megillah only says that he's potter from Krishma if he never saw ma'ayres? If he's not mechuyev in any mitzvahs, how is it possible for him to be moisi others? Zok Tosfos uvi Yerushalmi. If you learn like Yerushalmi, the mukish shalei ra ma'aris miyama v'yoshiv v'bayis afel oy shenoilad v'mara v'einei suma. The Yerushalmi learns snapshot someone who was blind from birth. He shouldn't. That's not what the Brayso is talking about. The Brayso is talking about somebody who never saw light in his life, not because he doesn't have vision, not because he's a suma, because he grew up in a dark place, an unusual case. A person grew up in a cave, he never left the cave. He cannot make the bracha yochai moyros because he never in his life benefited, but there's no pure suma. So that will be gavaltic. Here Rabbi Yehuda says a suma is part of a mitzvahs. There we're talking about a non-suma who's chayv mitzvahs, but he never saw light because he grew up in a cave. But Zok Tosfos, that would be nice according to Yerushalmi. Aval b'gemar didon mashma the mari b'suma mamish. in our Gemara, it seems, in the Bava, it seems that what Rabbi Yehuda's halacha is by a summa mamish. And it's saying that only a summa shalei ma'arish miyamav cannot say yotzar ma'arish. Cannot be mitzi others with Birchas Krishma. But the problem is, according to Rabbi Yehuda, any summa wouldn't be able to. Because our sugya says, Mefarish time with Rabbi Yehuda, the Omar ain't Paris. The reason why Rabbi Yehuda said someone who never saw cannot be moitzi other people with Birchas Krishma is mishum de'eina hena min ha'ma'oris. It's because he never had enough from light. Rabban Savri is le'ana, and the Rabban say he has enough. Rabbi Yosy, shara suma vavuka biyadai. Rabbi Yosy once saw a blind person holding a light. Amalei told him, "Beni avuka zulama. Why in heaven's name do you need a flashlight? You can't see anyway." Amar lei, the Suma told him, "I benefit greatly from a flashlight. First of all, kozman shavuka zuba yadi b'nei adam roi noisi umatzil noisi. If I have light, people notice me, people will see me, and then with my light, they'll be able to walk me and help me avoid obstacles." So you see clearly they're talking about a blind person, not just someone who lives in a cave. So from the discussion in the Gemara Megillah, it's quite clear that they're discussing someone who never saw because they were blind. And then the kasha is, why is it that Dafka, someone who never saw, in the Gemara Megillah, Rabbi Yehuda says he can't make Birchas HaMa'aris. In our Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda says that any summa, no matter when he stopped seeing, is potter from all mitzvahs. Venira, the Afal Gav, the potter Rabbi Yehuda, summa mikol mitzvahs, even though Rabbi Yehuda says over here that a summa is potter from all mitzvahs, mikol makai midirabanan chayiv. Midirabanan, the summa would still be chayiv in all mitzvahs. The Afal Gav, the Isha mifter of a mitzvah, say shazman grama, v'loy mechavina afilu midirabanan. I don't understand. Just because a summa is potter midiraisa, automatically you'll say there's a chayiv midirabanan. What about a woman who's potter from many mitzvahs, and we don't say that she's chayiv to do those mitzvahs midirabanan? So why is it that by the summa we were mechayivim with mitzvahs? The teretz is mishum sheyesh mitzvahs harbe de mechayeves bu. A woman at least has other mitzvahs that she does, but a summa I patris leimi kol mitzvahs afilu midirabanan. If you're going to part him from all mitzvahs, even with Rabbanan, he's going to be like a regular guy. He won't do any mitzvahs at all. He doesn't feel like a yid at all. And therefore, Rabbi Yehuda here says that a summa is part of mitzvahs, but it's chayav b'Rabbanan, and therefore he could still be mitzvah other people. But someone who never saw light in his life, he can't even be mighty other people. He will be potter in Gansen from Birchas Krishma, Kivan the last night Hanoah. Alvalim Rabban Istama. But if he once saw light and he became blind, then Chayiv Midrabanan, he would be Chayiv in Birchas Krishma Midrabanan, Umoitzi Acher Midei Chevasam. And he will also be able to be Moitzi Acher Midei Chevasam. The Acherim Nami Lo Mechayiv El Midrabanan, because Lamaisa everybody's Chayiv is only Midrabanan, the Krishma Drabanan he. Because Krishma Drabanan Kedama B'Misha Mesai. In Perak Mishamesu. Don't say, how could someone who's only mechuyev midrabanan be mighty other people? A cotton who's only chayiv midrabanan al chinuch cannot be mighty other people. There's a big difference. His mitzvah is not even to do the mitzvah, just to get him used to it. But here, the summa that's chayiv the mitzvah, the rabbanan, he's chayiv be'etzem to do the mitzvah. He could be mighty other people. So it's very interesting because even though Rabbi Yehuda said that a summa is pot from all mitzvahs, klor, the summa is for sure chayiv mitzvahs loisas. No one's going to suggest that because he's a summa he's allowed to eat chazer. No one suggests that because he's a summa he's allowed to eat on Yom Kippur. He's allowed to be boil arayas. He's allowed to do avodah zarah. Avadanan. Rabbi Yehuda was only partnering him from mitzvahs say, and you see from Tosfos that not doing a mitzvah say is also making somebody like a nachri. The refraining from doing things that aren't right, that's good. But to give someone the tzur of a yid, he has to get up and go. He has to do positive. He has to do mitzvahs. And if it wasn't for the fact that a sumo would have a chiv to do mitzvahs, even with their banan, the sumo would be mamish like a guy.
Did you say that Krishma is a drabanan?
No, he wants to, he doesn't, he wants the schar of doing a mitzvah. Like if you do it and you're not commanded, it's not the same as doing it.
We're about to get into that. The Gemara is about to get into that. The Tosfos says at the end, as far as the Rabbanon, Tosfos says, the Krish with the Rabbanani, Kedamar b'Misha Mesa. So I guess saying Krishma in Shachris with Birchas Krishma is the Rabbanon. Unless it means the Birchas Krishma are the Rabbanon. Because we do know, it says Beferish in the Krishma itself, B'Shach B'Chav V'Kumecha. So there's a chiv that rises to the Krishma. So this is probably talking about Birchas Krishma.
So it's not Krishma itself?
I don't think so. I think Krishma is a deraisa, is it not?
Okay, so I'm thinking that it's,
I think
it's a
Kippur
machas.
means is they say Birchas Krishma.
It's not, it's not clear from the psukim. That's how, it's interpreted by Chazal that it should be a drashach of kumecha. But you read the psukim, it doesn't suggest that. It's an interpretation. So, is there a machlokas about this, or is it clear cut?
I don't know. Later today, I'll look it up in brachas, and I'll do my homework on it. Because Tosfos is quoting from the Gemara brachas, which I don't know offhand. Okay, now I got homework. Kavaltik. Okay, so now let's get back to Rabbi Yehuda's halacha that assumes part for mitzvahs. Tosfos clarifies. We know he's chayiv, and this is loisasa. Tosfos clarifies that midrabanan he'll still be chayiv in mitzvahs. Okay. Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef we know was blind, and he said, is a famous sugya. My Reish Havamina. I used to say, Man the Omer Allah Rabbi Yehuda. Whoever will pass on like Rabbi Yehuda, the Omer Suma Patim in the mitzvahs, who holds that Asuma is part of a mitzvah, Kavidna Yom Tavel Rabbanim. I'll make him a party because I like the fact that Asuma is part of a mitzvah. My timer, the loy mafkedina. I'm not mitzvah in the mitzvahs, the kavdina mitzvahs, and I'm doing mitzvahs. So that's gewaltig for me because I'm going over and above what I have to do. But the hash the shamis lahad Rab Chanina. But now that I heard what Rab Chanina said, Dam Rab Chanina gadol mitzvah v'aisa, mimisha eina mitzvah v'aisa. It's greater to have a mitzvah v'aisa. Mimisha eina mitzvah v'aisa. Then man the Amerli eina lachak Rabbi Yehuda. The man the Amr is going to tell me that lach is not like Rabbi Yehuda. And the fact that Suma is chayiv in mitzvahs, that will make me happier. Avdina and yoyim b'tayvel rabbanan. My timer, ikimaf kedina istli igrat fei. If I'm a chayiv to do the mitzvahs and I do them, I get more schar than if I was doing them and I was not mechuyev in doing the mitzvahs. So they say a lot of Torah why a mitzvah v'aisa is a greater schar, and that is because when you have a mitzvah v'aisa, your Yetzer Hara tries to stop you from doing it.
The explanation was Rabbi Yosef.
Rabbi Yosef said I'd rather be a mitzvah v'aisa because then I get more schar for doing the mitzvah.
That contradicts what it was said earlier. Why is that?
Well, no. What Rabbi Yosef said is, till I heard of Rabbi Chanina, I thought it's better to be an Eina mitzvah v'aisa. But after Rabbi Chanina told me that it's better to be a mitzvah v'aisa, so then I'd rather be a mitzvah v'aisa. Because then I'm doing it. Yeah, Rabbi Chanina told him that no, mitzvah v'aisa is better. So I bezoi, if mitzvah v'aisa is better, then I of course want a blind person to be mechuyev mitzvahs.
Was he blind from birth or later?
No, I think he only got blind later on. Yeah. We talked more about it. In this way, it's more chomer if an adam makes a chavala in a person, from if a shor makes a chavala in a person. Sha'adam mishalem nezek tsar ripoy sheves and poishes. An adam pays 5 different payments, and if Rachman Latzlan, a person kills vladais, umishalem to my vladais. But for sure, ein mishalem al nezek, upatim it mevladais, because it says Rashi says ki not to anoshim. Anoshim achai for mevladais, but not an animal. Now we have a mission that we just learned. Hamakas avaves imoy v'loy also ben chabura, and remember we learned the case was if you want to bring a riot to Rabbah, you could say it's a case of where he hit him and it was going to grow back. But then you'd have a riot from here that you're chayiv in nezek. So in order to neutralize this riot, The Gemara said it's speaking about his father was a go-go dancer, and he had beautiful hair that he would shake around as he danced, and you put some type of cream on his hair that made his hair fall out, and he had wounds on his head, and because of that, he was no longer able to dance, but it was going to grow back, and therefore, it was not going to grow back. And it's a case of where you have all the damages, and that's why he's chayiv. Again, there's no chiv misa there. Chayiv b'kulam. You're chayiv on all of the 5 payments. Now there is a problem. There is a problem with chayvel b'chaver b'yom kippurim, because the halacha is if you're chayvel b'chaver b'yom kippurim, you are chayiv malchus, and we have a rule that not only ain't the meisa mishalim, ain't the maloika mishalim, and normally if there's an aver that triggers a chiv tashlumin and a chiv malchus, you get malchus and you don't pay. But there's a special pasuk that we're going to learn by chavala to tell you that by chavala you pay rather than get malchus. Hachayvel b'revet ivri. What if someone is chayvel in revet ivri? Chayiv b'kulam. Once again, you have to pay all 5 payments. Chutz min hasheves bizman shehu shaloi. If it's your evet, if it belongs to you, then you don't have to pay for sheves. Again, this poses a very big problem because just yesterday we had a machloikis between Abaye and Rava how to deal with an evet. So I'm going to turn back to Pei Vav Amud Aleph, and I'm going to reference what we learned yesterday. Itmar hakatei yad evet ivri shel chaveron. If you cut the hand of an evet ivri that doesn't belong to you, who is entitled to the payment? Abaye Amar noishel sheves gedoyel la'eved v'sheves katana l'ra. So the sheves katana, you're damaging the adon by now making this evet cannot work. So the adon is entitled to that payment. But Rava Amar hakol yinasein la'eved v'yilakach ben karka. The money should be paid to the evet. Now the evet would have to buy karka with the money, and the payers will go to the Rav. But the payment from the mazik should go directly to the evet. Does that not indicate that the evet is entitled to his own sheves? So, fragging the achroinim, if the evet is entitled to his own sheves, so if the adon himself did the damage, once again, why do you say chutz min hasheves bizman shehu shaloi? It's the evet. What you should do with it is the adon should have to pay his evet the value of the sheves, just like we learned in Amud Aleph, and they should buy with it karka, and then the adon will get the payers. So that is what they ask on Rava from this Mishnah, and what they answer, I believe it's the Pnei Yeshua speaks about this, is the reason why the evet entitled to the sheves when someone else damages him is because he container who said I was going to have work these days. Maybe my adon was going to give me off these days anyway. Maybe he wouldn't have had work for me. So therefore, the sheves belongs to me. That's my adon. But if it's the adon himself doing it, then it's sort of a Moshe Bechaver L'Raya. Maybe I will do it. Maybe I will use you, and therefore he doesn't have to pay sheves. You give me a funny look. Should I repeat that, or does it make sense? Make sense? Okay. Hachayvel be'evet kanani shalacher. What if you make a chaval and somebody else is evet kanani? Chayiv b'kulon, you'd have to pay its owner all 5 payments. Rabbi Yehuda Omer ein la'avodim b'ishus. And if you remember, we had this yesterday as well, that avodim, if you damage avodim, there's no din b'ishus. Now we have another very interesting halacha, which actually blows up into a big machloikis rishonim and achronim. Cheresh shoyte v'katan pigyasin ra. It's bad news to get into any type of confrontation with a cheresh shoyte v'katan. Why is that? Because a chayvel behem chayiv. If you make a chaval on a cheresh shoyte v'katan, you're going to be chayiv. Now you might not be chayiv boishes for the shoyte, like we learned, but you're chayiv on all the other damages. But v'hem shechavlu ba'acheir p'turim. But if they damage you, they're potter. So they're basically a menace to society. Steer clear of a cheresh shoyte v'katan. Now, let me ask you a question. A katan who does damage, he's potter. Does he have to pay back when he becomes an adult? So let's keep that question lingering for a minute, because the Mishnah does not address that question. But let's look at the next line. It's also bad news to come into contact with public menaces like an eved and an isha. Why? Because a chayvel behem chayv. If you're chayvel on the evet, you're going to be chayiv. If you're chayvel on the isha, you're going to be chayiv. But the hate shechavul b'achayim p'tur. But if they're chayvel on others, they're potter. You know why they're potter? Because they have no assets. It's not good to get into a fight. Rashi she'ein lahem ala shalit. They have no assets. It's not good to get into a fight with somebody who has no assets, because if he damages you, you'll never have a way of recovering your costs. But aval mishalman lachazman, they will have to pay once they do have assets. How will they acquire assets? Niskar shoisha, if the woman became divorced, or nishtachar evet, then chayav and l'shalom. At that point, where they could have their own assets, they will be mechuyev to pay. Now that we learned the halacha by a isha, let's go back to a katan. What would you say by a katan? When a katan grows up, will a katan have to pay? So the obvious answer is, of course not. Because if a katan would have to pay, just like the Mishnah said by an isha and an evet, aval mashalom lachazman, the Mishnah should have said by a katan aval mashalom lachazman. Since the Mishnah doesn't say that, it's a raya that if a katan does damage as a child, he does not have to pay even if he becomes an adult. So imagine if the day before someone's bar mitzvah, he comes into your house and he smashes a vase of yours and you lose $1,000. The next day is his bar mitzvah. The most you could recover is the gift that you had intended to give him. So at least you can tell him, I would have given you $1,000 gift, but I'm not giving it to you because you busted my vase. But there's no other way to recover your damages. Although the poskim say, what if a katan borrows money when he's a katan? Their avadi is mechuyev to pay back when he becomes an adult. But focusing on women don't have to pay back if they did any damage. So let's finish the Mishnah, and then I want to show you a fascinating Mordechai. So the Mishnah says women do not have to pay back, and of course, why doesn't her husband have to pay? If she damages somebody, she has no assets. Do we claim from her husband? The Mishnah says no. The husband does not have to pay. She doesn't have money to pay, so the victim is out of luck. However, once she is no longer married to her husband and she has her own assets, then she will have to pay. Hamaka ava ve'imay ve'asa ben chabura. So now there's kamei b'derabnik because there's a chiv mis involved. V'achayvel b'chaver b'Shabbos, where there's also a chiv mis involved. Potem mikulam, he's potem from all damages. Because he's chayiv misa. V'achayvel b'evet knani shaloi, and if someone makes a chavala in his own evet knani, potem mikulam, he's potem from everything. The evet belongs fully to him. So I just want to, I don't know if I have this in my Gemara. I'm not sure if I have it in my Gemara. I don't have it in my Gemara. I should have brought my old style Gemara. The Mordechai says, fascinating halacha. He says, nowadays in our modern 13th century world, because he lived in the 13th century, in our modern 13th century world, where women are very active in the business world, and they run businesses out of their husband's home, when they're with their husbands, and they work together, we don't say anymore that she's potter from anything. And to the contrary, if she does any damage, or she steals, or whatever she does, her husband's assets are just like her assets, and she is liable to pay, and they'll take money. You can collect from the husband's assets if a woman does something. Das sagt to Mordechai. It's a huge chiddush. And he says the reason for it is because they're working together. She's working for him. They're in business together.
Time of Chazal, they also there are cases where women did.
True, but that's what the Mordechai says. You bring them from the
The
Ramban.
husband wasn't. You could say, "Don't support me. I'm supporting myself." There were cases.
But it seems like that was the exception, not the rule. And the Mordechai, since nowadays we're modern, and nowadays we have women are out there and they're making business and they're running businesses for their husbands. We do force the husband to pay. That's what the Mordechai says. And the Achroinim argue. The Ramah in Siman Tzadik Vav in Choshen Mishpat says no such thing. He disagrees with the Mordechai. And he says a woman doesn't have assets, she doesn't have to pay. And the Shach actually says that she does have to pay. The Shach passes the Maskana that she does have to pay. But it's a big tumult. Does a woman have to pay if she's not mechuyev? I once had a story where I did a job for a woman who had a business. I did a big job for her, and she didn't pay. She ran out of money. So I wanted her husband to pay. And her husband didn't want to pay. He says, what do you want from me? It's my wife. So I wish I would have known this Mordechai then. But at the end he did pay. Then he did pay. But Akalponim, you see a very big shaila whether or not you could collect from the husband if a woman does damage. And the Mordechai also asks, if not, we're going to have a disaster because no one's going to want to do any business with women. If you know that if she messes you up, she cheats you, you have no recourse. So you're not letting anyone live because a woman won't be able to do any business because who's going to want to do business with somebody who's immune to all the laws?
I'm lost. If a shortcut does damage, you only
pays
collect Nessa.
Correct.
So Refuah, no.
Correct.
None of the others.
Correct. That chiyuv is not when the shor does damage. That chiyuv is not when the shor does damage. Rabbi Lozer had the following question from Rav. Someone who was chayvel in a bas ketana, who gets this payment? Does the daughter get the payment, or does the father get the payment? Since the father of a girl has shvach nurim, he gets her ma'aseh yadayim, he marries her off. Therefore, chavala nami davu ahava. Therefore, payment for chavala is also included in what the father is entitled to. My time at the end of the day, she's not worth less because of the chavala, and he has a right to sell her as an amma ivriya. Now he'll get less money if he sells her as an amma ivriya. So he's somewhat impacted by this chavala. The Torah is very specific with what he's entitled to. That's shvach nurim, which is the boy lemim shalom mukashchin. He could give her over. He could marry her off to mukashchin and charge a lot of money to sell her. Mati masar. He could do that. Aval chavala, kivan the boy mischavel v'loy mati chavel. He doesn't have a right to beat her up. So therefore, maybe he doesn't have that right. The right that he has is to marry her off, but he has no right to make a chavala. So therefore, if someone else makes a chavala, that's not his right, that's her right, and therefore she keeps the money and he doesn't get the money for the chavala. So we're talking about whether or not a father is entitled to keep the payment that a girl gets if someone made a chavala in her and damaged her. So Amarle, Rav answered back with clarity, turning on Tamid Beis, Loi zochsa hatayra la'av el shvach nu'urim bovad. The payment for the chavala is going to go to the daughter. Our very Mishnah says, if someone is chayvel in Eved Ivri, chayiv v'kulon, you're mechuyev to pay all the 5 tashlumin, chutz min hasheves b'zman shu shaloi, except for the sheves if it's his own Eved. So what do you see from here? Zokt Rashi, min hasheves b'zman sheves shaloi, v'loi be'eved da'acher, but not if it was someone else's Eved. If you were chayvel in someone else's Eved Ivri, Zokt Rashi, the notion shvachei l'rabbi, you would pay the sheves to the other. Katani miyas. What do you see from here? The Eved Ivri shaloi potter. Why is it that if it's my Eved Ivri, I'm potter from sheves? The reason why I'm potter from sheves is because if he lost the ability to work for the time that he needs to heal, I don't have to pay for it. Hoilu ma'aseh yadav shaloi. Since anything that the Eved will do is mine anyway. I own his labor. So therefore, if I damage his labor, I don't have to pay him for it because it was mine anyway. So once you see this by an Eved, since we know that the ma'aseh yadayim of a daughter goes to the father, lishkoil sheves tida. So therefore he should get her sheves. The kashal Rav, it's going to be shver and Rav, damar lezichsa Torah la'av, ela shvach nurim belvad, the vada afilu chavala is zichsa. How could Rav say he doesn't get payment for a chavala? L'chala pachas for sheves, he should get payment because he's entitled to her malacha. If she would work, he gets those ma'aseh yadayim. So Esvei achayvel v'revri chayvel chutz v'sheves b'zman shushaloi. Rabbi Zoktebaya, you're right. Moida Rav b'sheves the ma'aseh yadayim achas bagrus davu ahavei. When Rav said he's not entitled to the payments, it means he's not entitled to nezek, he's not entitled to tsar, he's not entitled to ripui, and he's not entitled to boishes. But sheves is takehis. So Rav meant that the father doesn't get anything besides sheves, but clear he gets sheves because she's no different than an Eved Ivri. The ma'aseh yadayim belong to him. We're going to have another kasha on Rav. Again, Rav said that all of the payments of chavala go to the girl and not to the father. If someone beats up his adult son, besides the fact that it's an isser, because you might cause him to hit back, Nevertheless, he's got to pay in full to his own son for the damages, because Rashi says he has no rights in his adult son. But what if it's a junior son? He also has to pay. But a child can't manage money properly. So skula, you buy something for him, which will be an investment, which the Karen will remain, and I'll have it later. The Gemara discusses what is it that you will buy for him. Which is our subject matter. Potter, he's potter. So you see clearly, not like Rav, because Rav said she's entitled to it. If she's entitled to it, so then if the father did it to her, he should also be chayiv. So you see, not like Rav. This payment that the Brisa says someone who's chayv on a daughter has to pay the father is only referring to the sheves, because the ma'is yadayim belong to the father. But anything else, nezek, tar, ripui, and boishes, is a payment that goes straight to the daughter. Let's go back and look at this Brisa we just quoted. You got to pay. Frank Gemara, we're going to refer to two Brises. The Brisa before the two dots that we just learned that says you have to pay for chavola if you make a chavola on your son who's an adult. And now we're going to talk about a Brisa that's after the two dots. We're remitting. You have to pay them right away. Ketanim, if you damage someone else's children, yatsalem skula. Again, it's some type of investment that will remain in the future for when the child grows up. But if you do a chavol on your own children, potter, you're potter. So the Brisa before the two dots says you're chayiv to pay your children if you damage them. And the Brisa after the two dots says you don't have to pay for your children if you damage them. Amri zok gemara loy kasha. It's not a kasha. Can't kisha smuchim al shulchanoi. When they're still dependent on you and you're still supporting them, there you're entitled to their ma'aseh yadayim. They're entitled to their payments. There, if you damage them, you're going to be potter. And that's what the Brisa after the two dots are talking about. But the Brisa before the two dots are when you told your sons, take a hike, take care of yourself. And then you make a chavala, then you're going to be mechuyev to pay. So the first Brisa that says you're mechuyev to pay your children if you make a chavala is b'she'ein smuchin al shulchanai, when you're not supporting them. If it's speaking about somebody who you're not supporting, let's look at the second part of that Brisa that we already discussed. What does the second part of that Brisa say? The Brisa before the two dots. It says you made chavala b'vita yaktan your potter. And remember, we said that shevis. Even Rav agrees that the shevis is his because he owns her ma'is yadayim. Meaning, according to you, where it's speaking where he's not giving her mezainis, he's not supporting her. Why do we say he owns her ma'aseh yadayim and therefore he gets her sheves? That's not true. He's not supporting her. So if he's not supporting her, then she's entitled to her ma'aseh yadayim. The boy mezaini because she needs to survive. Even if you hold that a person can tell an eved, I say imi veini zandra, you need to work for me all day. I'm not giving you to eat. Where are you supposed to get eating from? At night, go knock on doors and snore money. But I'm not giving you anything to eat. You're going to have to work all day, and I'm not paying you. That's what you could do for an eved ivri, for eved knaini. Hanimili be'eved knaini. The amr lay aved eved dakula yom, work all day. Ulu urtin at night, zil sachar ve'echel. Go knock on doors. Savei ve'echel chazar lapsachim. So figure it out. Avol eved ivri, you're not allowed to do that to an eved ivri. You can't do that to an Eved Ivri. An Eved Ivri you're mechuyev to support. So if you're mechuyev to support an Eved Ivri, like Kol Shekain Bitoi, surely your daughter you have to support. So if it's speaking in a case like we just said where you're not supporting your children, why do you get her sheves? She should get it because she's entitled to her own ma'aseh yadayim because she is not being supported. And for the Gemara, this is no slouch of a girl. She had such a good job. She produced way more than what she needs to eat. She's earning $100,000 a year. She only needs $20,000 a year to eat. So she's earning an excess of $80,000 that he would be entitled to, even though he's not supporting her. He only has to let her keep enough money for her mezainis. But anything over and above that, he would get her ma'aseh daim anyway. So look at this guy; he doesn't want to support his daughter, and not only that, he's taking money from her. The money that she earns over and above what she needs for the mezainis, that the father's entitled to, and even though he's not supporting her, he will get the payment for the chavala of shevis, at least the extra money that she doesn't need. Let's understand this again.
Shabbos is not more. The Shabbos is only like Yishem Kshir, right? Shabbos it doesn't have so much adafa.
Whatever that adafa would be. Yeah. The mayu kimta libasraisa. What are you telling on the second brisa, the brisa that's after the two dots that says that you're potter, bismuchen al shulchanai, when you're supporting them, and that's why you own their ma'aseh daim, and that's why you're potter. And what is the halacha? Gedolim yitin lamiyad and ketanim yaslam skul. Correct the Gemara. If you're supporting them, amai la viem boilam meisvei. You should be paying this demei chavala to the father. Zokt Rashi lavu boilam meisvei the maishnaki chaval behu iu. If he himself was chayvel on them, the Brayta says the mifter misheves. He's part of them sheves. Why? Mishum the smuchen al shulchanai. So therefore, if I own their sheves, he chavli behu achrini nami leishalei. It should be paid to him. Yet the Brayta says, even in the case where he's supporting them, that they get the payment of the chavala from the third party, the father doesn't get it. Zok Gemara, that's true. You know why? Amri, we're not going to go into the psyche of a father, what he feels he's entitled to from his child when he supports the child, and what he feels the child should keep for himself. So Amri, Kika Kapid, you know what the father is makwid on taking from the child if he's supporting the child? The midi de kachasa. If I made the chavala, after I'm supporting you, now I have to pay you also for chavala. That already I don't want to do. So b'midi de kachasar, I don't want to pay if I'm chayvil you. But b'midi de ashemal, if somebody else is chayvil you and you're getting money, that has nothing to do with me. There, I don't mind if you get it. Like up it. So therefore, the Brisa says, if I made the chavala myself, I'm patrick, I'm entitled to your shevis. If someone else did the chavala, technically I'm entitled to the shevis. But a father forgives his child. You got beaten up. You keep the money. It's not costing me anything anyway. He's entitled. Frank the Gemara, but that's not true because we know the halacha is that you're entitled to the mitzvah. If your child finds a mitzvah and you're supporting the child, you get to keep the mitzvah. But mitzvah, the mitzvah also not costing me anything. Yet you see the kakapit, you see that the father is makbid because Allah is the father keeps the mitzvah. That's not costing him anything either. Why is that different to the payment of Kabbalah? Zok Gemara, we need to clarify the father's psyche. Amri, you need two conditions. Ravcha de ka'asalu mahalma. Number one, if it comes from the Welt, it's nothing that comes out of the father's pocket like a mitzvah, but v'leslu tzara de gufayu, but it didn't hurt the child. The child didn't hurt like a chavala. He got lucky. He found something on the street. He won a lottery ticket. The gava cup. That the father would also be makbid on. You found the mitzvah didn't hurt you, didn't cost you. I own your ma'aseh, I support you. I get it. Aval chavala, which has two features. A is the isl tzara de gufayu. You suffered horribly because someone beat you up and punched you and hurt you and damaged you. And it's not costing me anything anyway. On that like cup, that a father wouldn't be makbid on. So that's why Dafka Chavala, the Asum and Alma, the father's happy to let his child keep. Frank the Gemara, I don't understand. The Hasam, this like Tzara de Gufa. Over there, it's a case of Tzara de Gufa. Ume Alma Kasila. And it's coming from the Welt, the Kakapit. And you see the father is Makbid. Where do you see that? The Katani Veloyoid, Ella, Achem Shechavlu Ba, Chayavin, Litain Leavia. Let's go back and look at the Brisa. We're speaking about by Samach al Shulchan Aviv, and it says over here. Right, let me just look. Let's look at inside. Veloyoid. It says Veloyoid. El Achem Shechavlu Ba. We're going back to the first Brisa. Veloyoid. El Achem Shechavlu Ba. Chayavin Litain Leavia. Right, that's what it says in the Brisa. So the problem is Veloyoid El Achem Shechavlu Ba Chayavin Litain Leavia. So you see clearly that the father's makbid on getting something that she's getting me'alma and she's getting beaten up for it. You just said that if it's something that the child it's coming by alma, and the child is suffering pain to get it, there the father forgives the child. You see, the father does not forgive the child. Zok Gemara, what are you talking about? You're asking me from the brisa of a father who's such a jerk that he doesn't even support his own children. That's what we learned was the first brisa. Amri Hasam the Gavra Kaptanu. This is a father who's a captain. He's not even supporting them. What type of father is that? A chazer like that, who's not even supporting his children, yes. He'll be mocked with that. I even want you to make Kabbalah, even though you were beaten up and you suffered for it, I want that too. That's the psyche of somebody who doesn't support his children. But in the second brisa, where we're talking about a normal person who supports his children, he's supporting his children, he forgives his children. He'll only be mocked with that he should be entitled to, or either if it's costing him money because he hit them and now he's going to have to pay, that is makbid on. Why should I pay? I'm supporting you. And but if it's something that comes with alma, he won't be makbid if it came with pay. I mean, see, he still will be makbid on. Okay, so now we have an understanding of the brisa, and we get into the psyche of different types of fathers. Now the Gemara said earlier, the brisa said earlier, what do you do by a katan? By a katan, what you do is you make a skula for the child, because if you give him the cash, he will waste it away. So my skula, what is this skula? You buy for the child a sefer Torah. Rabbi Bar Rafuna Amar Dikla, you buy for him something that's going to be around for a while. The achul minei tamri, the keren remains forever, the dekel, and it'll always produce. Tomorrow it'll produce income. Rish Lakish is the same thing. Which is what we quoted from Rav. Rabbi Yochanan Amar afilu pitzia. Even a pitzia goes to the father. Correct the Gemara. Psia sol kedaitach. Do you actually learn that the psia, the father gets to keep? Afilu Rabbi Lazar like him a boy. Even Rabbi Lazar never had a shaila. Ela chavala, only by chavala, the af chisami kaspa, where she loses part of her value. And that's why, since he has the right to sell her, therefore, if she becomes worth less, he's entitled to that. But tsar, why should he be entitled to? If there's just tsar here, but there's no nezek, where it doesn't impact the father at all, there's no shaila that he surely should not be entitled to it. It should go to the daughter. The slap that she got was a slap that in fact did create nezek. And that's why we're going to say it would go to the father. Now her value to be sold would be worth less, and that's why the father is entitled to it. But Sarah alone, everybody agrees the daughter would get, the father is not entitled to. Okay, we'll stop here. Be'ez Hashem, we will continue tomorrow. Daf Peches.
One of the reasons is that sometimes the father can make child because he didn't want to eat up. So nicht noch, ich hätte gesagt, du willst nicht essen, boom. So von dem,